search
So the
for it.
party line is like this, and this has been around for decades now. There's always much more concern over the absolute value of LDL. And the idea is that the lower the LDL, the better. So modern cardiologists today are looking for an LDL under 100. And this is all crazy making because what you said. I love the way.
I love it. Whatever your cholesterol is what it needs to be.
Right.
If your continuing search for answers has led you nowhere, you will find the truth here on the Forbidden Doctor podcast. Seek the truth with your hosts, Dr. Jack and Mary Stockwell.
Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Jack.
And Mary.
And we are here with podcast episode 98, Cholesterol is King. How low cholesterol will kill you. Ooh, we're going to have some fun with
Ooh,
this.
that looks good.
Yeah, you're looking at a life-saving breakfast here. In this podcast, you are going to hear why cholesterol is the king of chemical compounds that your body manufactures. And you're looking at two good sources of cholesterol right there.
Notice the egg and how it's nice and orange and up high. It's not flat and yellow.
A very healthy egg. Without cholesterol, there would be no emotional life, no sexual life, no mental life, no healing, no repair, no cellular growth, no feeding of cells, puberty would not happen, skin would not develop correctly, no eyesight, and a completely dysfunctional nervous system.
Wow.
In
no
other
eyesight.
words,
Wow.
You could not live. And the primary source of cholesterol is your liver, as the brain commands the liver to make it. So, one more thing. There is virtually no relationship between the levels of cholesterol in the blood and heart disease, except for one little caveat. If you have had a severe cardiac event and you survived, as is evident by your listening to this podcast, there might be some reason to lessen the cholesterol, but not because it's the enemy. It is there trying to heal the lesion that's part of the heart attack. However, with up-to-date medical understanding, the healing can be guided without getting the healer itself, cholesterol, into trouble. So, big news here. We told you this before. We're going to tell you again.
Just last week, we finally have our long life energy enzymes on Amazon. And, did you know you knew this, Jack, but you out in the podcast land, did you know it's very difficult to get a supplement on Amazon now because they've been so overrun with these chemical cheap products from China that they just mark up 4,000% and try to sell them on Amazon.
Costs 50 cents a bottle and they sell it for $25.
Yeah. So we had quite the little process to get able to sell this on Amazon, but with our track record, 25 years in business with our clinic and of course the podcast and the radio show and everything we've done, plus we make this ourselves.
Yes.
So it's not like we buy it and then just, buy some cheap stuff somewhere and mark it up to make money on Amazon. This was made for us. So it's pretty exciting. Now here's the one problem. Right now, while we're still so new on Amazon, you do have to search for long life energy enzymes in quotes.
Right.
You won't find it if you just type long life energy enzymes. We're not important enough yet.
No. So it has to be in quotes, so the search is specific for that product.
Yeah, and if you buy it on Amazon, leave us a good review. We will make it worth your time. Trust us.
All right.
That's all we can say.
So this webinar podcast is not intended to be a diversion away from the current system of disease management. It is our intention to offer a rational, very effective approach to aiding your body in its ability to rebuild and heal. So if you are having a real crisis, get to the ER as soon as possible.
Here's our weekly feature, Forbidden Secrets They Don't Want You to Know. These are the secret things they keep from you, the dumb things they tell you, and the really important things they know nothing about. Today, they came out with a new report that said life expectancy in the U.S. drops for the first time in decades.
So that means we're going to die sooner.
Yeah. Well, they related it to the heart. They said the heart attacks, heart problems are all getting worse. And they were interviewing a cardiologist on the screen, the TV, when I was watching this. And the cardiologist completely blamed it on obesity, lack of exercise, and of all things, opioid use.
Yes. Yeah, well, the new fentanyl scare, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's bad, but Not one word about cholesterol and how we have messed up your
Oh, my goodness.
bodies with this low-fat nonsense for about 70 years.
Yeah, there was, I noticed on some website here not too long ago, it was something like over 250 drugs that exist for the heart.
Oh, wow.
250
Probably more
drugs.
coming out every day.
Yeah, there is.
And
There is.
it costs millions to get those approved by the FDA.
And it is still the
How
number
do
one
they have
killer.
that money?
Well, because they sell them on an unsuspecting public.
Yeah.
I say that carefully, but I mean it.
Yeah. Well, here's another things they don't know about. This is an incredible article. It was written by a senior research scientist at MIT.
Now,
So-
she does know about it.
Yeah, she's incredible. Fructose, sunscreen, statins, and flu shots, a recipe for Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah. So, it's a very dreaded diagnosis. I mean, we even know somebody close to us who's been diagnosed with this. And it
Alzheimer's.
immediately causes a patient to have to confront the frightening fact that the rest of their life they're going to be defined by steadily eroding memory, cognitive function problems. I mean, Alzheimer's is alarmingly on the rise and has been so for the past several decades. And the cost to society, both financially and emotionally, is just staggering.
You know, a friend of mine that's a friend on my Facebook, posted something about Alzheimer's and said, man, I can't wait till there's a cure. I hope they find a cure. And, I know her, and she thinks that it just is, she has somebody close to her that has Alzheimer's. And she just thinks it was just luck.
Bad luck.
Bad luck. Yeah, not good luck.
Yeah.
Just the luck of the draw that they got Alzheimer's. And that's not what she says at all in this article.
No, she says, and I'm going to quote here, much research effort has been devoted to the search for a cure for Alzheimer's, most of it predicated on the notion that the characteristic amyloid beta plaque and the tau tangles are causative. Indeed, some drugs that attack the plaque have made it to phase 3 clinical trials, and although they do indeed shrink the plaque, they unfortunately also accelerate the rate of decline.
Yeah, they're blaming the wrong thing.
Now get this. This is what put her on my top 10 hero list. I think a better tactic is to look for a cause rather than a cure.
Yeah.
Together with colleagues, I published a paper this year on a theory for the cause of Alzheimer's, which was based on the idea that a key contributor is insufficient cholesterol in the brain.
Wow.
And we're going to get into that a lot more in this podcast. Now, this is Dr. Stephanie Seneff, who is one of the teaching and research professors at MIT. I mean, it's not like, somebody on the street who just said, I think I'm going to stand up on an apple cart here and talk about something I don't know anything about.
One thing she says in this article, when you look back to the earliest stages of Alzheimer's, the principal defect that is observed is an impairment in glucose metabolism in the brain. Neurons ordinarily depend heavily on sugar as a fuel source, but sugar is toxic to cells if it's not carefully managed. Now listen to this. You read this, babe. Because
the cells have developed a mechanism for controlling the entry of glucose to be restricted to certain gates, G-A-T-E-S, the regions of the cell membrane, called lipid rafts, because they're floating in this sea of lipid material that are heavily enriched in cholesterol and sphingomyelin.
Yeah, that's the word I couldn't say. So that's another form of fat?
Yeah, it's what lines the
myelin
nerves.
sheath. Yeah,
it's part of the myelin sheath.
Mm-hmm.
And when cells don't have sufficient cholesterol in their membranes, they have fewer lipid rafts, and this leads to defective glucose uptake, which means the brain can't pull in the sugar the way it's supposed to, and therefore increased risk to glycation damage from the glucose. And glycation is when sugar and protein comes together in an unnatural way that actually affects the body in a dysfunctional sense. In other words, this plaquing that starts to take place here in the brain that has been identified for so long is, this is what this amyloid beta plaque that is there on autopsy of a Alzheimer's victim. They're blamed. They think it's this glycation thing, and the glycation again is where sugar and protein comes together in an unnatural form. It happens if you fry a protein with sugar in a frying pan.
Which Dr. McBride says you should never do.
You should never do. And now, does that extend to sugar-based barbecue sauce on ribs in a grill?
Maybe. And honey-baked ham.
But make sure you put the sugar on after the meat has been cooked.
Right.
Don't cook the two together.
Yeah, Dr. McBride says that's very critical.
Yes.
And as she explains here, that can actually damage your brain. And she goes on to discuss further in the article how statins, even being on statins for a short time and depriving your brain
Yes.
of this protective fat,
We're going to get to this in much more detail here.
damage your brain
Yeah.
irreparably.
All right.
She says. I cut out that section that we just read because it was so good. If you want to take a screenshot of that and show your family.
Well, the last part there that you have in bold, when cells don't have sufficient cholesterol in their membranes, they have fewer lipid rafts, and this leads to defective glucose uptake. It can't pull the sugar in. Now, the brain cells love sugar because it's an easy source of energy. Now, they prefer ketones from fat metabolism, which is why people who have no sugar in their diets whatsoever have very active, healthy brains because they're getting their energy from ketones. It takes a while to switch from sugar to ketone, but most Americans, if you're an American, your brain's living off of sugar.
Yeah.
And if it's not done in the proper way, this increased risk to glycation. In other words, the sugar and the protein come together and then the brain doesn't get the sugar. All right.
Okay.
So we want to tell you a story. And this is the story of Karen and Jesse. Karen and Jesse are long-term listeners of of my national radio show. And they sent me their blood work. And in sending me their blood, they went to the expense of a very expanded blood panel. I mean, it covers everything. And they wanted us to look at and tell them about the lipid part of it, the fat part of it.
Yeah,
because that's what most people are concerned with.
They were very concerned about their cholesterol because they've been scared to death. And they're actually patients.
Yeah, well, they're actually patients. They're not just listeners. They're out-of-state listeners who happen to be patients.
So we know a little bit about them, and that's why you...
Just like that incredible couple that just came from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Randy and Chris.
Yeah.
So hi, Randy and Chris. I know you'll be listening to this podcast, so that ought to give you a little laugh.
Well, this couple we really love too, and they were so scared about their cholesterol that you offered to do
so they said, well, send me your blood work and I'll take a look at it. And they did through the internet, and I studied it and I wrote back, some of which will be here. But we want to use their blood work as a skeleton, a framework to explain cholesterol and why cholesterol is king. So we just start. Here's a Time magazine when the new idea about cholesterol has come out. Cholesterol is one of the most essential substances in the human body. Why? Because every cell in the body produces cholesterol when it's needed.
When it's needed.
Yeah.
I didn't know that when we were studying.
The outer lining of all the phospholipid barrier of all the cells is cholesterol
I thought
based.
it was just the liver. This is really incredible.
Well, most of the cholesterol does come from the liver.
Right, it does. But this was new to me, and we took it from some articles we're going to talk about later in the podcast.
So if you ingest large amounts of cholesterol in the foods that you eat, your liver won't make as much. If you don't eat a lot of cholesterol-rich foods, your liver is going to make it.
Yeah.
Because the liver has this little manufacturing facility inside itself to produce cholesterol. And this, of course, is the whole concept behind statins. Statins. Come on, Jack. Statins stop these manufacturing facilities from making cholesterol. And at the same time it stops everything that's downstream of that cholesterol manufacturing, which involves over 50 different hormones. And it just shuts down a natural process of the human body.
I mean, how can they think that's good? When they got this past the FDA, they had to prove that it does stop cholesterol, and they did. But did anybody ask the question?
Is this something good or is this something
Is this
bad?
all it does?
Yeah.
Did anybody
Is
say
this
it
a
also
good idea?
stops 50 other metabolic processes in your body?
If you had a little blood disease, should we give you a drug that stops your body from making blood? All right, so how's this work? Well, the liver wraps up the cholesterol because it's a fat into a package because the cholesterol, being a fat, can't mix with the blood.
Blood is water soluble.
And it is. That's right. It's water.
It's water,
And because it cannot mix with the blood, it gets packaged into this little protein called a low-density lipoprotein. And a lot of people are familiar with LDL, and that's what it means. Your liver took that little glob of fat because it needs it to go somewhere. And it can't just throw it in the water or the blood because it's the same thing that you see here in this picture of olive oil and balsamic vinegar. You see how they separate. And the little packets of spices you can buy in the grocery store, and then you mix it with some oil and vinegar and then sprinkle on your salad at home. Everybody has to shake it vigorously before they pour it on the salad.
They should make little LDL, salad dressings.
LDL dressing.
Yes.
So once this little LDL package is put together, then it's thrown into the blood and it's sent to whatever organ needs it. Now, every cell in your body, every organ requires large amounts of cholesterol. In fact, your brain is 40% cholesterol, mostly DHA. And the actual neurons in the brain, and this is still surprising to some of my patients that didn't know this when I mentioned it to them, the actual neurons, the synaptic aspect of the brain, where the brain cells that control all the processes of the body only make up about 10% of the brain structure. You really do only use 10% of your brain for consciousness and subconscious existence because only 10% of the brain mass itself are these neurons. The majority of it is fat. The glions, the glial cells that hold the whole brain together, and the protein structures, 40% fat.
Yeah, that's where we had that patient that got the glioblastoma.
Yeah.
The glue of the brain. And boy, that's a tough one.
Well, you have neurons, you have glial cells, you have astrocytes. Some people have astrocytoma. There's different kinds of cells there, but the glial is the worst. Glioblastoma is the worst because it's like pouring ink into a sponge.
Yeah.
Now get the ink out of that sponge without hurting the sponge.
Yeah. So you have to harness the body's immune system, which this patient did not do.
Wasn't even interested.
No, but if you harness the body's immune system and strengthen it, you stand a fighting chance.
Yes, you do. Very good point. Now, all steroid hormones are made from cholesterol. The adrenal hormones, the sex hormones, all are made from cholesterol. And if you have low blood cholesterol, you cannot make these steroid hormones. Then you're going to have low adrenal hormones, which handle the stress, so you won't be able to deal with stress or depression, and you'll likely setting yourself up for a nervous breakdown and putting funny things on your head and paint on your face and
like this picture,
vegetables in your eyes. In fact, this vegetable, this sliced cucumber on this guy's eye, represents medicine's understanding of nutrition. And
Get rid of your puffy eyes.
And you'll find yourself very intolerable and irrational, and you actually might be a reactionary out in the street protesting something that doesn't need to be protested.
Well, that's nice and funny, but if you have low levels of cholesterol, you won't be able to have children.
That's right.
1 in 7 in Utah are infertile.
Yes.
1 in 7 couples,
I'm not sure what the national stats are, but in Utah it's 1 in 7, and it's about to be 1 in 6.
Yeah, because we have such high sugar intake in this.
And these low-fat, crazy people.
And low-fat, crazy people, because I think fat makes them fat.
Yeah.
So your body won't be able to produce sex hormones.
And sex hormones are with us from birth. They help us to grow properly. Little girls don't start having female hormones when they hit puberty. They have them from birth. Little boys have boy hormones from birth. It's just that the larger amount of that hormone hits the blood in puberty, then the sexual differentiation changes start taking place.
It's a good thing because they eat so poorly as, teenagers.
Yeah, well, that's a good point.
Good thing.
But even our sex drive comes from these hormones, and without adequate levels of cholesterol, we will have no sex drive. And I was mentioning on the Doug Steffen show the other day, I said I still surprised the number of guys now in their late 20s, early 30s, who complain to me about no sex drive.
Yeah. I just had somebody tell me their very young boyfriend has ED.
Wow.
And she was kind of blaming herself. She was like, "Do you think I'm not attractive?"
No, I'll bet.
It's high
Let's
sugar,
look at the diet.
low fat.
Look at the diet. High sugar, low fat. Now, if you have a low level of cholesterol, your brain is not going to be able to function correctly, because as soon as people are put on medication to reduce their levels of cholesterol, their health begins to suffer. I say this as a 21-year clinician in the Salt Lake City area. I had a clinic in Tulsa before I came here, and I went to Palmer School back in the Quad Cities before that, and have worked with patients probably closer to 30 years. And when they have started, now they didn't come to me and say, should I get on statins? They got on statins and then told me about it later, and then I began to watch things take place.
Yeah.
And yet it's one of the most prescribed medications in the whole world. I mean, for several years, Lipitor has been the number one selling cholesterol-lowering drug, and it is one of the most harmful drugs anybody could possibly take. Nobody should be taking this type of medication, and yet it's the number one selling drug in the world, and it was never an issue. Cholesterol was never an issue till they found a drug that would stop the liver from one of its normal functions.
Wow.
And it's been shown that when people start taking statin drugs, they become depressed. They have personality changes. I know there's people listening to this podcast right now who know somebody, or they themselves have become somewhat unpleasant, and other people, or they've seen it in other people, crankiness, irrational behavior. They can become criminal in their behavior. In fact, studies have shown in American prisons that 80% of violent inmates have low levels of cholesterol. Their brains were starving. And remember, 40% of the brain is cholesterol, and when the levels of cholesterol are low, the structure is going to be affected negatively, and the result is altered function. Again, their brains were starving. So why do these people have low levels of cholesterol? I think that's one of the most normal questions somebody would ask when we're talking about this. Because the liver, now this is besides taking two very powerful statin drugs that force the liver to not make cholesterol. And when you're forcing your liver to not do it, and you have a low-fat diet at the same time, you are
high
on
sugar.
A one-way trip to disaster.
Yeah, high sugar, low fat.
Because you're not going to be getting any cholesterol or any fats in the system at all. But because the liver that makes the cholesterol, these little factories in there, they require various nutritional cofactors to do the job.
Yeah, and before we move on, just want you to take a look at your screen at the healthy liver and the
cirrhotic liver. Just ugh.
I mean, and we eat liver all the time, but would you eat that one on the right?
No.
No.
But you won't see that in a cow.
And it can't make cholesterol.
You won't see that in a cow. Yeah. You'll only see that in a human.
Well, because we get to choose what we eat.
Because we're Americans.
We can do what we want.
We eat the American diet. So there are several biomechanical steps in the manufacturing of cholesterol. Vitamins are involved, other hormones, minerals, enzymes. And if the person does not digest and absorb their foods properly, they're going to miss out on these critical nutrients, leading to nutritional deficiencies. And then on top of that, they're usually very toxic.
And that's a problem, because people with low cholesterol have many toxins in their body, and these toxins block the biochemical chain that produces cholesterol, much like statins do.
The same thing that statins do.
Yeah, massive poison.
Yeah, I was just downtown here earlier this morning before we did this podcast, and I was driving towards a park that's kind of on the west side of downtown, and the homeless, looking at the homeless people, and my heart just went out. I just, what kind of a diet?
They should have cauldrons of broth,
They should have big cauldrons of broth boiling in these parks for these people so that their brains can be fed.
And beans. You know how beans look so good on the
I'll bet
movies.
these people, to the last one of them, have low cholesterol.
Yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, and so because of the toxins that are in the fast foods they can buy from the handout money they get.
Well, then also the antidepressants that we're all taking. I mean, those just create massive toxicity in the soul to where their brains don't function. So their liver can't make the cholesterol to keep their brains healthy.
So these people are just naturally prone to violent behavior and cannot function properly because toxins block the manufacturing of cholesterol. And all cells make cholesterol, But the liver makes even more cholesterol if it's not filled up with toxins.
It's called a fatty liver, if you've heard of that.
That's one of the forms of a toxic liver.
And I had to just throw this cute little cartoon in there, Nita Morijani, my hero. In order to heal the world, we have to heal ourselves first.
First and foremost. So a large number of GAPS people are in this category as well. And a check of their cholesterol will usually show that it's low. So what do we tell these people? There must be 2, maybe 3 people a week, because I'll see well over 100. I'll bet 2 or 3 will have this conversation, that I want them to have 4 to 5 eggs in the morning. They must have high cholesterol foods several times a day. They must have high levels of cholesterol for their immune systems to work properly. I mean, people with low cholesterol are prone to cancer. They're prone to infections. Studies show this. And when they get an infection, it is more severe than another person with normal levels of cholesterol.
And cancers and everything else.
Yeah, and in fact, they're 4 times more likely to die of the same infection as someone with normal cholesterol. We'll explain this here in a moment. So taking all this into consideration, we need higher, not lower levels of cholesterol, because people who are depressed, expressing violent behavior, irrational behavior, need higher levels of cholesterol. And same with the elderly. There's studies that show that the higher their cholesterol, the healthier they are. With no sign of dementia, they're intelligent and they function well. And the more the cholesterol levels were low, the shorter were their lives. There is no doubt the epidemic of Alzheimer's disease comes from cholesterol drugs. Statins can be stopped cold turkey. I've been asked that, well, how long will it take me to get off of it? Number one, you go back to your prescribing physician and you tell them what I said. And you tell them you want off this drug and you want off of it now. It's not like an antidepressant drug that you've been on for years that can take a long time to get off of.
A year to get off of those.
Statins can be stopped cold turkey. And then
this is from Dr. McBride.
Might mention the coffee here as well, because it needs to be wrapped up with the fat.
Yeah, if you are drinking coffee, you need to add fat, butter, cream, stop all sugars, but you can use honey in the place of sugar.
Sugar can be replaced with honey.
That won't damage you.
But we'll get to that.
According to Dr. McBride.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a little more. So back to the story, back to Karen and Jesse here. So this is what I told them. I said, I read through their reports and I typed this out and I said, hey guys, concerning your lipid panel here, I think your total cholesterol is about 100 points too low. Now, if you have a blood panel today and if your cholesterol is under 200, it'll say you're in the good zone. If it's over 200, it's going to say it's too high. His was 204, and he thought at first, well, this is okay because it's only 4 points over high normal. I said, no, it's about 100 points below where it should be based on your age.
Protect your brain.
And he's looking at 70. And I said, 70 years old. And I said, no, your cholesterol should be 300 to 325. What? Well, you gave it to me to read and to tell you what I think I'm telling you. Based on current up-to-date research, you should be over 300. I said your triglycerides are a little high. It was 157. Most blood work I look at is usually in the neighborhood of about 120 to 160. It should be just under 100. But that's because of the sugar in the fruit and the processed carbs that you eat and the almost complete lack of animal fat and protein. He says, now, wait a second. How can you tell me that my triglycerides are high because I'm eating sugar? Very easy. Your body will use sugar for energy before it uses the fat because it's so much easier to get energy out of sugar. In the sugar molecule is oxygen. There is no oxygen in a fat molecule. Your body has to bring oxygen into the process to release the energy that's in the fat. But the sugar's already got built-in oxygen, and it'll take the energy out of that as fast as it can.
So if you eat something, as we've said before, with fat and
sugar,
your body's going to use the sugar for instant energy and store the fat. So that's why donuts are so bad.
Yeah.
But they taste so good.
Yeah. Dripping with glaze, dripping with that white death. Yeah, they taste pretty good. And so he understood that. If you have two sources of energy and one's being consumed, the other one's going to increase. Mm-hmm. So the fats go up when you eat sugar. And I said, the test said his HDL was a little bit low. It was a 40. Normal is 50 or more. And the HDL is considered the good cholesterol, but we're going to get into this. We hate those titles.
Yeah.
And then your cholesterol to HDL is a little high. Now, what they do is they take the total cholesterol and they divide it by the good cholesterol, the HDL. So if your cholesterol was 200 and your HDL was normal 5, you would have a 4.0 for your range. 3.5 is considered normal because they want the HDL a little higher than 50 and they want the cholesterol a little lower than 200. Just another numbers game. And then A1C is really big out there right now. It's the relationship between the hemoglobin, the oxygen-carrying part of your blood, and how it moves sugar. And 4.5 to 5.5 is considered normal. His was 5.7. It's an indication of insulin handling problems, sugar handling problems, pre-diabetic, diabetic kinds of situations. And I said, as far as that was concerned, you're just fine.
He's pretty good there. But yeah. I do need to make a note. It says A1C, but my font that I used makes it look like it's ALC.
Yeah, that's a number 1.
But that's a number 1.
Capital A, 1, little c, is just fine. So the values from these blood panel measurements have been the standard of trying to predict as well as treat the incidence of heart disease. The number 1 killer in America and has been since I was born in 1950 and going up.
Yes.
Which is why lifespan is now going down.
Just
is
this
there
week.
A problem? Just this week.
Before this week. Yeah, it was fine, but just this week.
So the ratio of cholesterol to HDL is just the simplified way of looking at the total lipid profile, and a ratio of 3.5 to 4.4 is considered okay in the medical sense. So that's this kind of what I was telling him. Now, it's only in the last 10 years that the theory of what causes plaque buildup in the blood vessels is beginning to change, because I can still remember those pictures of somebody eating a big greasy hamburger and then a picture right next to it with the fat from the hamburger going through the bloodstream. This obviously was written by somebody who does not know digestive physiology, who doesn't understand that is not how it works.
Well, you know, when you eat butter, how solid would that stay in your body when your body's 97 degrees?
Well, the internal temperature is 103.
Yeah, it's even
So
hotter.
put a plate of butter or a pat of butter on the stove and bring it up to 103 degrees and see what that butter
happens
does.
But they'll use that kind of marketing. Show you a hamburger, show you butter, and then show it clogging your arteries up. And it's insanity.
Well, the prevailing theory is that since various types of fat are bound to a protein, which makes it possible for the fat to float in a watery blood,
talked about,
and fat is a part of this plaque makeup, then fat must be the enemy. I've given this analogy before. It's like coming up to the scene of an accident. 2 cars smashed into each other. One of them ruptured their gas tank. There's gas all over the street. Gas must be the cause of this problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. There's several other factors, causative factors going on, because calcium is also a component of plaque. Where's the drug to keep our calcium levels low? Yeah, nonsense.
Now, that's really important there. So they found fat was in the makeup of that plaque, but it also has calcium in the makeup.
And proteins.
Yes.
And amino acids.
Why didn't they ban all proteins?
Yeah, ban amino acids.
Let's ban calcium. Well, they didn't have a drug for that.
Well, there's various types of fat, and in order to understand the difference between them and explain the previous believed theory of fat deposition, we have to have a good fat and a bad fat. And we have a little picture here showing you the bad fat being poured out from the wheelbarrow.
From the liver.
And the good fat going back. I mean, think about this. Think about this idea. The idea is that the liver is sending out a fat through the LDL, the low-density lipoprotein, a protein wrapped around the fat, and the good is the high-density lipoprotein, where somehow this same fat now has a protein shell wrapped around it and bringing it back to the liver. Like the liver doesn't know what it's doing.
Well,
I mean, think about this.
We're going to give the analogy of this in just a few minutes.
Just think about this for a second. I mean, why is it sending it out and bringing it back?
I don't know. They both.
Why doesn't it? They both what?
They both look like robbers. You know, they look like criminals.
Oh, bad guys.
Dumping fat.
Yeah, and they are fat.
Yeah. Yeah, well, when you have a wound in your arteries, your body hormonally calls fat through the liver, says, hey, send some healing fat up here.
Yeah, down here at this intersection.
Yeah, and it comes up and patches that and saves your life.
Yeah.
And of course, you keep eating the sugar and you keep eating the bad fats and you keep taking the medication that keeps causing the
bad
wounds and the lesions and the inflammation. So it keeps patching and patching and patching and patching.
Yeah, your body is either in a state of constant repair or it's in a state of constant building, or it's in between, like most of us, repair, building, repair, building, repair, building. But when it's in a constant state of repair, from a constant state of inflammation, your LDL is going to be high. If you have an infection, your LDL is going to be high. If you've had accidents and injuries, your LDL is going to be high. Not because you sat there and ate that delicious salt brine soaked pork chop. It's because LDL is a healing agent inside the body.
Yeah, little kids don't have high LDL, but they don't have wounds all through their body.
No. So just as I was saying, the various types of fat, they had to come up with a bad one and a good one. And so their theory is the two most important fats connected to heart disease are the bad fat, LDL, and the good fat, HDL, because the bad fat is taking fat from the liver to the body. Why? That's the question. To a wound. And this LDL is atherogenic. In other words, it can cause plaque, and it allows the plaque to build up, which is a Band-Aid. Mm-hmm. And it patches the wounds inside the blood vessels. And as Mary said so well a minute ago, saves your life. And the HDL, the good guy, is the lipoprotein bringing these bad fats, the debris, back to the liver for disposal or reuse or whatever else. And so the whole theory for decades has been to decrease the bad guy, the LDL, and increase the good guy, the HDL, without ever asking why the LDL was there in the first place. Why is your body sending LDL? Well, we're going to get to that. Now, the Ornish and Pritikin diets were based on low-fat diets and some modicum of exercise, trying to reverse heart disease. And so when you do a lipid panel, you're measuring the amounts of LDL, HDL, triglycerides, and total cholesterol. And here's something, the picture here, that we want to see this as soon as possible.
Yeah, I should have blown this up.
The low-fat diet, the heart fat diet myth laid to rest.
Yeah.
Now remember,
I love this tombstone, helping the world to get fatter and sicker. The low-fat diet was born in 1939, and this says died in 2015.
And how will a low-fat diet make you fatter?
Yeah.
Well, remember, triglycerides are fats, but these fats are the storage form of all the carbohydrates you've consumed. Now, I mentioned this already. What in the world does a fat have to do with carbohydrates? Aren't those two different things? Yeah, they are. But fats, there's twice as much energy, more than twice as much energy in fat than there is, ounce for ounce of either protein or carbohydrate. Mm-hmm. Proteins and carbohydrates have about 4 grams of energy, 4 calories of energy per gram of weight. Fat has 9 calories of energy per gram of weight, more than twice as much.
But it's slow releasing.
It takes, unless you have been off sugar long enough so that your body knows how to handle fat for its strength and energy, there's a problem. Otherwise, it's going to go for sugar all the time. Mm-hmm. And remember, the number one job of insulin is to convert the carbs that you eat that you do not immediately need to fat for storage. Insulin, we're always talked about, insulin brings sugar, helps sugar get out of the bloodstream into the cell. That's right, but number one job, even more important than that, if you've got carbs floating around in that bloodstream in the form of glucose that you don't immediately need, your body will start storing that as fat. And first it's triglycerides. And the triglycerides fill the bloodstream, but triglycerides are too big of a molecule to get out of the bloodstream into the cells itself. So when it gets to the wall of a cell, it has to be broken down into the fatty acids, some essential, some non-essential, to get through the wall of the cell. Then it reforms as a triglyceride inside the cell. It's a beautiful chemical orchestra and ballet that takes place here. And it's the triglycerides, remember, that keeps you from starving at night when you sleep, when all the carbohydrates from dinner have been used up.
I thought that was fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Why don't you starve to death at night when you're not eating?
Your blood sugar drops.
Your blood sugar goes down especially if you have a late lunch or early dinner and then you don't eat anymore before you go to bed that night. and you go to bed with low blood sugar, why don't you starve to death before the next morning? Well, your body switches over and starts using the triglycerides that are in your bloodstream.
Well, I'm trying to find the podcast we did on diabetes, which you explained this so well, and I can't find
diabetes,
it. So just
amputations, and eHarmony.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah, it's one of the earlier ones.
So just go to our website and search it. Just type in diabetes.
Yeah, diabetes, amputations, and eHarmony.
Yeah.
And eHarmony has an awful lot to do with it. Yeah. Not with diabetes, but with the concept of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we can't find it, so it's okay. That's the nice thing about our website is you can
Number 25.
You found
Podcast
it.
25.
You can just search for it, though. You can just go right in.
Right. So the party line is like this, and this has been around for decades now. There's always much more concern over the absolute value of LDL. And the idea is that the lower the LDL, the better. So modern cardiologists today are looking for an LDL under 100. And this is all crazy making because what you say it. I love the way.
I love it. Whatever your cholesterol is what it needs to be.
Right.
If you have just gone through, massive smog like we have in Salt Lake City, or gone, followed or just taken some massive medicine, or you just binged on
sick.
sugar.
You had a bad infection. You had pneumonia. You've had tuberculosis. You've had serious inflammation in the gut. Your LDL is going to be very high.
Yeah, we're going to show you a slide on that really soon, but that is so important. Your LDL is going to go way up trying to heal you. So you cannot ever say, oh, your LDL is bad. It's too high. It should be lower. There's no number. Your body is so beautiful the way it balances out and adjusts. Yes. And every second of every day.
Only in the simplistic ways of thinking can you come up with the idea that there's a bad fat and a good fat.
So you can sell a drug.
It's to sell drugs.
It's to sell a drug.
So if you have wounds in your body, your LDL, the blood cholesterol, is going to be higher as your liver sends these healing fats to a rip, a tear, a never-ending ulcer, something, inside the intima lining of the arteries of your body. And as you said earlier, Mary, kids don't have LDL because they don't have wounds all throughout their bodies.
They don't have high LDL.
They don't have high LDL, excuse me.
Yeah, they certainly have LDL.
So we have Dr. McBride here,
and
one of our
new
mentors.
Picture. It's so cute.
Yes.
Yes.
She went and got another suit.
This is not a lady that markets herself well, but she is so brilliant. I have yet to find anything I disagree. Do you agree with that?
I can't even disagree with that.
I know. She's just brilliant. And she says, since LDL fights infection and is used to treat vessel lesions, the LDL is the ambulance going from the hospital to the scene of the accident to save the accident victims. The HDL is the ambulance on its way back to the hospital to the ER. How can you possibly claim the outgoing ambulance is bad?
Yeah. And I was giving you that other analogy there about baseball.
Yeah, well.
I was thinking about LDL is the team that's up to bat, and they've struck out because there's a lesion somewhere. And so they run out onto the field now because the other team is coming in. So there's the HDL leaving the dugout and going out to the field. They go out there, they win the day, or they win the inning by stopping the offense. And so now they're coming back into the dugout for their turn to score. And that's the HDL coming back into the dugout. You can't have a ball game without going out and coming in, going out and coming in.
That's life.
You cannot have a living human body without LDL and HDL and LDL and HDL.
So just stop it.
Yes, just stop it.
It's not the bad one. Neither one are bad. It's how Dr. McBride describes viruses and bacteria and parasites. She says they're all good. They all have a place. Well, if you want to read more, she wrote this incredible book because she got sick and tired of explaining why fats are good for you.
Yes.
Because, of course, the whole GAPS diet is based on fat, saturated fat. So she wrote this book. It's a wonderful little short book, and I'm going to read just a couple things from it. Cholesterol is essential for our immune systems to function properly. Immune cells rely on cholesterol in fighting infections and repairing themselves after the fight. LDL cholesterol, or the so-called bad cholesterol, directly binds and inactivates dangerous bacterial toxins, preventing them from doing damage in the body. Did you know that?
I do now.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? It directly binds that LDL, that bad cholesterol, binds and inactivates dangerous bacterial toxins. One of the most lethal toxins is produced by a widely spread bacterium, can you say that?
Staphylococcus aureus, which is the cause of MRSA.
Ooh, a common hospital infection. This toxin can literally dissolve red blood cells.
Yes, that's how it kills.
That's a bad one. However, it does not work in the presence of LDL cholesterol.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
you just take that and take it to your cardiologist.
So, yes, and the next time you have somebody in a hospital that's been diagnosed with MRSA,
Feed them eggs.
They need to have a half a dozen eggs every day, maybe twice a day.
It's been recorded that people with high levels of cholesterol are protected from infections. They are 4 times less likely to contract AIDS. They rarely get common colds, and they recover from infections more quickly than people with normal or low blood cholesterol.
So any person suffering from an acute or chronic infection needs to eat high cholesterol foods to recover. And cod liver oil, the richest source of cholesterol outside of caviar, fish eggs, has long been prized as the best remedy for the immune system.
And those familiar with old medical literature will tell you that until the discovery of antibiotics, a common cure for tuberculosis was a daily mixture of raw egg yolks and fresh cream.
Yeah.
Now, doesn't that sound wonderful?
Now, we have a very common food in the freezers of our grocery stores today that have raw egg yolk and cream in it. And one more thing.
Sugar.
Sugar.
Well, not in our raw egg whey shake that we recommend everybody have this every morning. You put 2 to 3 raw eggs in this, and you cannot taste raw eggs.
No, you can't.
Yeah. My dad, who absolutely hates eggs, will actually have a shake with raw eggs in it because you can't taste them. And it actually makes it foamy. And
Well, I mentioned this to a lady the other day that was at least 70 to 75. And I said, hey, wait a second. Didn't you go to the old soda fountains in 1950s on a date? Well, yeah. Don't you remember the egg cream shakes where they would make a milkshake and then put a raw egg in it and then stir it up even further because it made it thicker and richer?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about the lady
that.
last time about the live to 100, or she's still alive,
117.
She has raw eggs every single
Yeah,
day.
every day, raw eggs. She says that's why she's still alive.
So remember, when your LDL goes up, your body is bringing healing fats to a wound in your body, a wound or inflammation that is likely caused by sugar, bad fats, and we're talking about the hydrogenated fats and these horrible vegetable fats that people think are good for them, aspirin, and they know those aspirin a day. They know that causes strokes in the back of the brain.
Yes.
We have an article on that. And other medications, of course, cause lesions and wounds inside of your body. They're toxic, and it makes your liver toxic, and it can't make cholesterol.
Yeah. So when your LDL goes up, there is a reason instead of just jumping all over as being something bad. And interestingly enough, in modern medical thinking, there's this inverse relationship between LDL and HDL. One goes up, the other falls. And you'll notice following holiday celebrations where large amounts of sugar are consumed, the LDL always goes up and the HDL falls. And so the doctors want the HDL to go up and see the LDL drop commensurately. Now, this is a different example as to why LDL might go up if you've had an infection or an accident or some kind of continuing inflammatory process inside the arterial structure of the body. Where it's healing, here the LDL is going up because it's changing, the body's changing the energy and the sugar into LDL for storage. And they use the LDL to transfer the fat in the bloodstream to where they want it to go to be stored. Around the thighs, in the belly, in the butt, in the breasts, under the chin, in the cheeks, wherever the body can store fat.
You're describing me. I don't...
So from a conventional viewpoint, to be in the green as far as your lipid profile is concerned, you need a cholesterol and an HDL ratio of 3.5 or lower and an LDL of less than 100. And that is what modern-day cardiologists will tell you, and they use drugs to do this. And some will incorporate exercise and nutrition, but the nutritional ideas are usually terrible. Mm-hmm. No saturated animal fat and no salt. And still, heart disease is the number one killer for several decades now.
And going up.
Yep. So remember, when you eat low fat, you're most likely going to be eating high sugar, which is going to cause the LDL to go up. This is nonsense.
You're not going to eat cardboard. So when you don't eat fat, like cream and
Yeah.
bacon and butter and all these lovely,
Healthy
delicious foods, you have to eat something that tastes
so the
good.
next time you see low fat on a label in a supermarket, read the carbohydrate content.
It will say
And I'll
high
bet
sugar.
you it's 30 or higher per serving. Okay, I'm calming down.
Okay.
Now, in my radio show, my talk radio show in the past, I've often referred to a website called spacedoc.com. This is the website of the cardiologists who take care of our astronauts. And one in particular, Dr. Uwe Ravskov, wrote an article for Wise Traditions called The Benefits of High Cholesterol.
It's a great article.
Yes, and he shows that high LDL is largely responsible for preventing infections.
Preventing.
Yes, not just helping to cure them,
And
preventing
MRSA.
them, and that people with the lowest LDL levels are most risk for all-cause death rates, meaning dying for any reason, not just heart disease. And he makes a very good case that attempting to lower LDL should rarely, if ever, be undertaken for any reason. And he's a cardiologist that works with the astronauts.
He starts off his article starts it off with people with high cholesterol live the longest. He says this statement seems so incredible that it takes a long time to clear one's brainwashed mind to fully understand its importance. Because we have been so told
Yep.
that you have to have your cholesterol needs to be low. I don't know if you want to continue there.
Well, the fact that people with high cholesterol live the longest emerges clearly from a lot of scientific papers. And he says to consider the findings of one Dr. Harlan Krumholtz of the Department of Cardiovascular Medicine at Yale, who reported in 1994 that old people with low cholesterol die twice as often from a heart attack as old people with a high cholesterol. And the supporters of the cholesterol campaign consistently ignore his observation or consider it as a rare exception produced by chance among a huge number of studies finding just the opposite. Then it goes on to say, many studies have found that low cholesterol is in certain respects worse than high cholesterol. For instance, in 19 large studies of more than 68,000 deaths, reviewed by Professor David Jacobs and his co-workers from the Division of Epidemiology at the University of Minnesota, low cholesterol predicted an increased risk of dying from gastrointestinal and respiratory diseases.
Ooh.
Tremendous fatty tissue in the alveolar part of the lung tissue, and very fatty tissue lining the gut. So when the cholesterol levels were low, you were a sitting duck.
He later on in the article, and he says in 1976, one of the most promising theories about the cause of atherosclerosis was the response to injury hypothesis. It was presented by Russell Ross, a professor of pathology, and John Glomset, a professor of biochemistry and medicine at the Medical School, University of Washington, Seattle. They suggested that atherosclerosis is the consequence of an inflammatory process where the first step is localized injury to the thin layer of cells lining the insides of the arteries, the intima. The injury causes inflammation, and the raised plaques that form are simply healing lesions.
This is absolutely critical to this entire podcast, what you just read.
Well, he says their idea is not new. In 1911, two American pathologists, blah, 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 University of Pittsburgh, and their names. Manning is one of their names. They published a summary of their studies of the human artery and concluded that there is every indication that the production of tissue in the intima is the result of a direct irritation of that tissue by the presence of infection or toxins, or the stimulation by the products of primary degeneration in that layer.
Which would be a sickness in the arterial structure itself.
Yeah.
So researchers have proposed many potential causes of vascular injury, including mechanical stress, tobacco, fumes, high LDL cholesterol, oxidized cholesterol, homocysteine, the metabolic consequences of diabetes, iron overload, copper deficiency, deficiencies of vitamins A and D, consumption of trans fatty acids, microisms, and many more. And he says...
Microorganisms.
What did I say?
Oh, I corrected you.
You corrected me.
This is amazing.
Guilty. Whether we look directly with the naked eye at the inside of the arteries at autopsy, or we do it in living people with X-rays, ultrasound, or electron beams. No association worth mentioning has ever been found between the amount of lipid in the blood and the degree of atherosclerosis in the arteries. What does that say? No association between cholesterol and atherosclerosis.
He says whether cholesterol goes up or down by itself or due to medical intervention, the changes of cholesterol have never been followed by parallel changes in the atherosclerotic plaques.
Right. So what that means is even though they chemically force the liver to stop one of its natural functions, if plaquing is there, it will continue.
Because your body's going to win if it can.
Yeah. It's trying to heal something.
Yeah, this is a very long article, and we're just not going to quote anything more from it. But it is an incredible article. And I've got the link on the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, and then also at Space Dock is the work of Dr. Graveline, an MD and who has his master's in public health as well, who's author of the book Lipitor, Thief of Memory. And he's one of the chief cardiologists to the astronauts. And he insists on elevated cholesterol before a man or woman can go into space because their brains won't work without it.
Yeah.
And in his, one cardiologist will go to another cardiologist for their care. And he went to one who said, you have elevated cholesterol, and they put him on Lipitor. And after a little while of being on Lipitor himself, Dr. Graveline, he noticed his memory was having problems.
Well, he couldn't find his way home.
He couldn't find his way home. His muscles were starting to hurt. His joints were aching. And the only thing he did different was he started Lipitor. He stopped the Lipitor within 2 weeks, I think it was, 10 days, 2 weeks, all the symptoms were completely gone.
So he wrote a book.
He was just
Lipitor,
fine.
Thief of Memory. And that would be all statins, not just Lipitor.
Another book we highly recommend from one of our mentors, though he doesn't know it. Dr. Thomas Cowan practices in the San Francisco area.
We stalk these guys.
Human Heart, Cosmic Heart.
This is a brand new book.
Yes, it just came out.
Yeah, we haven't even finished it, but we've scanned it really well. We've read tons of articles of his, and there's some forbidden information in this book. I mean, totally forbidden, to the point where we're even nervous telling you about it because it's illegal.
It's illegal to use quabain. It's an herb from Brazil in this country outside of a prescription.
Yeah.
And the pharmaceutical companies that make the chemical derivative that comes from quabain, they put it in a pill form, and they sell it, as a prescriptive medicine. But you can get it in an herb from Brazil, and but not legally.
Not legally.
And we're not suggesting you do. It's just that everybody, and Dr. Cowan's very clear about this. Every heart patient he's ever taken care of who's had any kind of a cardiac event, once they started using this, never had another attack. Never. Not one of them.
Yeah, that's pretty forbidden information.
And then another book we highly recommend, The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teichholz.
Yeah, Nina, a U.S. investigative journalist, calls this a victory for science. A South African scientist says it proves that one person can change the world. It's a decisive defeat for medical, scientific, and dietetic establishments in their ongoing war against the critics of saturated animal fat.
Absolutely.
The British Medical Journal has announced that it will not retract the peer-reviewed investigation it published by her in September 2015. The featured documents in detail. It features the featured documents in detail. Oh, I must have written that wrong.
That's all right. Detail how the U.S. dietary guidelines have ignored vast amounts of rigorous scientific evidence. And this evidence is on key issues such as saturated fats and low-carbohydrate diets.
Well,
this could be considered the Bible of fat.
It could. The British Medical Journal published this article, and all these cardiologists and medical people got together. I forget, 181 of them or something.
I think it's that many.
They came back and attacked. They filed a suit saying, you have to retract this article. And the British Medical Journal says, no. We won't.
No, it's based on rigorous research.
And they found out, though, that this one guy, mostly this cardiologist, that had based his career on this low-fat nonsense, had asked cardiologists and doctors around the world to put their stamp of approval on this suit, suing this British medical journal to retract this story. And most of them didn't even read it.
Yeah.
They just said, oh, yeah, fat. Yeah, it's bad. Yeah.
Well, Teichhold says in her article that it stands as one of the most serious ever peer-reviewed critiques of the expert report for the U.S. Dietary Guidelines for Americans. Because if you go read the U.S. Dietary Guidelines for Americans, it's going to tell you low-fat diets are best. I'm telling you, you want to lose your mind and have Alzheimer's? You want to be potentially sick all the time? You want to increase your chances of all-cause mortality, which is dying for any reason? Get on a low-fat diet.
Or get MRSA.
Yeah.
So she is saying sugars and other carbohydrates are far more likely to are the cause of heart disease. Low-fat diets can be lethal, and she wrote this article, How Low-Fat Diets Can Kill You. She shows why people should go back to the way they used to eat before the epidemics of obesity and diabetes took hold.
You have to ask yourself, has this always been this way? No. 100 years ago, well, this is about the time heart disease started to show up on the East Coast in the inner cities, because this is the time for about 20 years now, white flour was made available. Mm-hmm. And in white flour, you have lost the B vitamins, not that crap synthetic stuff they spray on it. The real B vitamins that's in the germ of the wheat has been removed by making white bread. And anytime white bread has moved into a civilization where it wasn't before, after about 2 decades, heart disease is rampant everywhere.
Yeah, we talked a lot about that in our Heart Sound Recorder podcast.
Yes.
I don't know what number that is, but it was just a few weeks ago.
So meanwhile, back to the story.
Okay.
So I gave him a conclusion. What should you guys do? Well, and I would say this to anybody else, with all things being even here, unless your cholesterol to HDL ratio is over 5.5, which was not the case of either of these two people, you just need a low carbohydrate diet, mostly after the paleo design, some good active exercise, and supplement with food you cannot get in your diet. And that's why we recommend the General Health Pack from Standard Process would be a very good place to start. Other than that, there's little of any other value I can learn from your test. Yeah. With page after page after page. There's nothing else there I can tell you.
Well, we say it's very scary to go get your blood work done. Your physician will scare you into using drugs, and the most debilitating of most medications are heart medications for obvious reasons.
It is. It'll turn you into what is known as a cardiac invalid. Yeah. It'll slow your heart down even more. It'll lessen the impact of the heart contraction, and you have even less blood moving through the body.
Yeah, and I'd maybe add cod liver oil to this too. But let me show you what's inside of the General Health Pack. Look at those ingredients. I mean, do you eat that?
Tuna oil, defatted wheat germ, the very thing that has the B that I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. The calcium, carrot, sweet potatoes, the nutritional yeast, bovine adrenal, kelp from the ocean, bovine liver, para-aminobenzoate, an amino acid, form of the vitamins, dry pea vine juice, dried alfalfa from the whole plant, oat flour, bovine spleen, ovine spleen.
There's 2 spleens.
Bovine kidney, bovine orchic extract, bovine bone, dried buckwheat leaf juice, buckwheat seed, mushroom, sunflower lecithin, veal bone, and rice bran. And what do you get in this? You have all your vitamins, all your minerals, all your enzymes, all put together in a very small maintenance level pill.
Little packet. You can throw them at your husband.
Yeah. And now you look here and you get out your bottle of vitamins and you look at the supplement facts here and you say, well, my gosh, there's hardly anything there. No, compared to your big super mega atomic powered nuclear bottle of vitamin B.
That they sell on Amazon.
Yeah, that they sell on Amazon. It costs them 25 cents and they sell it for, $25. It's because those are all chemical fractions. They are not vitamins, even if the FDA says they are. They are not. They're just fractions of the whole thing. When your vitamins come from whole foods, you don't need much at all.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
And then if you're going to continue to eat sugar, this is what I said to my friends there in the letter. I said, and you're not going to. They eat ice cream all the time. They're not going to stop eating sugar.
Well,
so
they're basically vegetarians, too.
Yeah, yes, they're not getting a complete.
They won't eat animal fats or animal proteins really at all. Occasionally they'll eat fish.
Yeah, he'll eat fish from time to time, but that's about it. He says, animals are my friends. I don't want to eat my animal. I don't want to eat my friends.
Yeah, so you still eat too much sugar.
And if you're not going to quit, you're going to need Lee enzymes, the enzyme product Mary and I put together to support the pancreas's ability to stay up with the sugar.
Bring your pancreas back to its normal, healthy state.
Because sugar has been called white death. Mm-hmm. And we now know, because of very good research, that 100% of high blood pressure comes from sugar consumption because of what it does to the inside of the blood vessels. Ugh. Also, 1 milligram of sugar needs 56 milligrams of magnesium and about as much chromium and amino acids to handle and process that 1 milligram of sugar.
And that's where it comes in nature. That's how it comes in nature. It has all the magnesium, all the chromium. If
yes,
you look in
but
honey,
it doesn't come as white powder either.
No.
Any more than cocaine.
But you freebase,
Yeah,
right into your veins.
Cocaine is not made by nature either.
No.
Cocaine is made by man. White sugar is made by man.
Processing the sugar.
Yeah, and so the sugar then comes into your body, and like a highway robber, a villain, it robs your body of magnesium and chromium and amino acids. And it is absolutely more addictive than heroin and
morphine. Yeah, it excites the same areas of the brain as those. And I should have put in a slide for Cataplex GTF, which has the natural form of chromium in it, and also magnesium lactate. So just remember that. If you're going to eat a lot of sugar, take the Lee enzymes, take Cataplex GTF for the chromium.
Yes.
And, of course, magnesium also.
So we recommend eating foods high in cholesterol. Salmon contains small bioactive protein molecules that are called bioactive peptides that provide support for joint cartilage, insulin effectiveness, and control of inflammation in the digestive tract. Salmon also has incredibly high levels of essential omega-3 fatty acids, EPA, DHA, most of which most of your brain is comprised, which carry these countless health benefits, of which the most crucial is arguably the prevention of cardiovascular disease, and I would add Alzheimer's.
Yes. I just had to throw these in. This is, again, these recipes made me drool, thehealthyfoodie.com. This is a citrus, avocado, salmon, ceviche.
But remember now, salmon is high in fat. Avocados are high in fat.
No sugar in there. And then the 2 salmon tartare. Oh, that looks so good to me. I don't know. It just makes my mouth water. So cholesterol is also really abundant in bone broth, that if it's made with chicken necks, backs, and feet. See, because the
Gotta get me some of that.
Yeah,
chicken feet.
That chicken feet. No, seriously, chicken feet is super nutritious.
I know, it's full of collagen.
I know. Collagen is packed with amino acids, the proline, glycine, glutamine, and arginine. And the proline helps tighten up your skin, ladies out there, as well as your gut, which is the most important. And then the glycine supports liver detoxification. Remember, your body can't make cholesterol if it's too toxic. And glycine is also crucial in healing and supporting the immune system. L-glutamine is what we always recommend when we're doing GAPS, because it is shown to repair and tighten up leaky gut, which can be the source of many autoimmune diseases and allergies to gluten and lactose and everything else under the sun. That's a whole GAPS discussion. But then also there's arginine, which helps in cell division and healing of wounds, and also helps remove ammonia from the body and helps to release hormones.
Yes.
And since all diseases begin in the gut, you've got to heal your leaky gut first, and look at the benefits you'll get from this as far as the cholesterol also.
Oh, you got to stop showing pictures like this. A Dutch oven chicken bone broth. Oh, my God. You could pour that over anything, and it would be even more delicious.
Yeah, and see that bone marrow on the right?
Yep.
She has a whole recipe how to make the most deliciously cooked bone marrow.
Yeah.
It was so hard not to put 50,000 pictures on here.
So let's recap.
Okay,
the high LDL is not the issue. The reason why you have a high LDL is the issue.
Yes.
You'll live longer with less disease having high cholesterol. Toxins block your liver from making cholesterol. Statin will slowly kill you. I mean, why would you block your liver from making one of the most important substances in your body? And read this book. We highly recommend The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teichholz. And another great book by Dr. McBride, Put Your Heart in Your Mouth. She wrote this, baby, why?
Because she got sick of telling people it was okay to eat fat.
Yeah, answering the same question over and over again. And then, of course, the long life energy enzymes.
If you're going to keep eating your sugar.
Yeah, if you're going to keep having a high sugar diet, you need to have a very healthy pancreas. And that's what this is designed to help support pancreatic function.
And there's the list of ingredients in the product because there's, as Dr. Jack says, go ahead.
There is no other product like this in the world to help bring your pancreas back to its normal, healthy state.
It's now available on Amazon, but you do have to search it in quotes, Long Life Energy Enzymes. And I did want to mention also, if you do buy it on Amazon, leave us a good review. We will make it worth your time.
And there's free shipping.
Yeah, we took off the shipping on Amazon. So we're paying the shipping on that.
So maybe a little tease here of a coming podcast.
Ooh, I had to slice this in. This is so amazing. You know, we did this show on forbidden forgiveness, which is more, you know, how you heal your body if you forgive and all those types of things. This is a podcast Anita Morjani did just recently with Dr. Bruce Lipton. And he talks about how how your brain, the pictures you create in your head, change the chemistry of your blood.
Absolutely.
Change it. And he proves it.
Yes.
This is the epigenetics that you've maybe heard so much about recently.
Yeah, the genes have very little about making how your body works.
Yeah.
This is like
cutting edge.
This is like saying there never was a Moses. Moses was just made up, you know. I mean, that's as shocking as saying something like that. The fact is that the thoughts in your mind control your chemistry that controls the expression of genes.
Yeah.
So you can have the BRCA1, BRCA2 breast cancer gene and not get breast cancer. You can have neither one of those genes and get breast cancer. That's not genetic determination does not have the gravity and weight that science tries to make out.
Yeah, and they've been bombarding the airways with this 23andMe, getting your genes tested, which of course I have done, but it's completely opposite what you should know. And we may do a podcast on this next week with Dr. Bruce
or
Lipton.
Shortly thereafter if we don't.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. Okay, and there's two links down there because they both kind of work to go listen to that podcast.
So the statements made in this webinar about specific products have not been evaluated by the United States Food and Drug Administration. I almost sound proud saying that. Mm-hmm. And are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease. All information provided or any information contained on or in any product label or packaging or this webinar is for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for advice from your physician or other healthcare professional. And I want to add this. If you are going to stop taking your statin drug, you do so under the guidance of the prescribing physician. If they won't help you stop it, go to another one. I've had more and more patients now who I've told, I didn't tell them to stop this, but I said the symptoms you are coming to me complaining about are the principal side effects of a statin drug. Go to your doctor, tell him you want to quit. 20 years ago, they said, oh, your chiropractor doesn't know nothing. You take this drug. Today, you know what they're saying? Okay. You mean I could just stop it? Yeah, you can stop it. You don't have to take it if you don't want to. Well, what'd you give it to me for?
They're getting scared.
They're getting scared.
Yeah. Okay, we will see you next week.
Yes, and we will have another good show for you. Hopefully. We'll do our best.